So then what was the process like to go through to run for elected mayor? And then actually when you did start, is it what you thought it'd be?
So the process, yeah. So there's two ways to look at that. There's the bureaucratic process. So, you need your forms filling and you need loads of signatories. I can't remember how many. It's a lot of people have to sign a form and say they'll vouch for you at a personal level, and they give their name and address and they sign. And that wasn't that easy. I mean, lots of people support you, but trying to track them down and actually meet them and get their signature and and what is this form again? And what am I signing? And, so there's bureaucratic hurdles. You have to pay some money, a deposit, not a huge amount. It might have been 500 quid. But it's a bureaucratic and legislative minefield running a campaign. For example, you have, and you get loads of dodgy information as well. The rules are quite vague on political campaigning. Some of the rules are crystal clear and some of them are very vague. And what you find is that some people who are paid to advise you, maybe they work for a council or something, they will give you their interpretation, but they'll give it to you as if it's the law, when in fact it isn't. It's usually just what makes their life easier. And it's trying to work out what's the law and what isn't. But there are laws that govern elections, and everyone's always trying to trip each other up. So if I put up a big post that says vote for Steve Pugh, right? Yeah, let's say you're standing in some kind of election.
One day.
Somewhere on that poster, if it's during the election, somewhere on that poster, there has to be, in the tiniest print, if necessary, printed by, published by, on behalf of. Now, the public never see it because it's so tiny. And truthfully, I can see why they do that, but it doesn't really make any difference. But if you don't do that, what happens is all your competitors call up the relevant body, who then go to the police, or they go straight to the police and they say, Steve Pugh has broken electoral law, which is technically true. You've not really done anything terribly wrong, but you've broken a rule. And you get a call from the police in the middle of your campaign. But people do that with all kinds of things. For example, you're not allowed to incentivize voters with hospitality. So if I was standing for election, you might be a voter of mine, you and your neighbours. If I say, come to the pub with me and I'll buy you all a dinner and we'll have a brilliant night, and I spend, a huge amount of money wining and dining you all in the hope that you're all going to become evangelists for me and go out and spread the word. That clearly breaks election rules. However, what you can do is put on refreshments. So if I hold a meeting in a pub, it's perfectly legitimate, to put on soft drinks. There's no rule against putting on booze, actually, but you probably get questions. It might be hard to explain. And there's no rule against putting on sandwiches either, by the way. But you see, there's a grey area in that I can't take you for an expensive meal, but I could, in theory, get you and your neighbours to the pub and put on some sandwiches and soft drinks without any questions.
Yeah.
But however, having said all of that, what somebody did, I'll say somebody, I'll tell you it wasn't a minute, I won't give you their name, is that I had a meeting in a pub with some residents. They wanted to meet me. I said, okay, I'll meet you in the local pub down at Berwick Hills. And we met in this back room of the pub, and we all said, and they all got themselves a whatever drink. And I didn't have a drink. I went to the bar and I said, does anybody want a drink? Go in the bar. No, they were all fine. As I walked through from the little back room to the bar, this guy came, I was stood at the bar, and this guy came up to me and he said, are you Andy Preston? I said, yes, I am. He said, I want a word with you. I'm not very happy. I said, all right, okay, well, I'll talk to you in a minute. I said, I'm actually can I just order a drink? I said, what? And I said, do you want one? And he said, no, thanks. Fine. I got my Diet Coke. And we went through the room, and he then proceeded to disrupt the meeting, just spouting incoherent nonsense. He was very nervous. He'd been put up to it, and he'd been fed a few lines, and he didn't really understand them. I'm not sure how savvy this guy was, but he was definitely in an uncomfortable place. He was anxious, but was borderline offensive and very, very disruptive. So basically, the other people who asked me to come and meet him, they kicked him out with a flea in his ear. But I got a call the next day or 2 days later from the police, saying they were going to investigate me trying to bribe voters. And like, so what had happened was, I'd literally not bought anyone a drink. There was a meeting in a pub. I was at the bar. Some guy came up to me and I said, well, there's a meeting next door if you want to come in. If you really want to have a go at me, do it next door. We'll have a chat, sit down, calm down. While I'm here, can I get you a drink? A Diet Coke, by the way.
And it was that, yeah.
And it was that. Anyway, understandably, that was dismissed as absolute nonsense.
But someone still did it.
But well, who was that guy? Who was that guy? I was fighting Labour at the time. As an ex-Labour member, I've got nothing against the Labour Party. But Labour were fighting hard against me and spreading all sorts of untruths. And they said it was nothing to do with them, nothing to do with them. This guy, after a bit of digging, not much, turned out to be the brother-in-law of the Labour candidate who was against me. Now, he swore blind. It was nothing to do with him and it was nothing to do with the Labour Party. But obviously, it looks very, very odd, doesn't it, when the Labour candidate's brother-in-law reports me to be. My point is that you have to be so careful. Campaigns, if you are a threat to power, Stephen, things get really nasty. If people are fighting for power, it gets tense. But if people are going to lose power or fear they get really nasty, and it's horrible. And you asked me about my experiences and how I found it. It's a privilege to do the job. It's a horrible job. As an independent who gets non-stop abuse, lies, people putting up, I've got a nice house, people put up pictures of my house on social media. That's not a crime, but it's designed to intimidate my family and say, oh, well, Andy Preston lives in a nice house. You should hate him too. Yeah. And, things like that, they show a lot of the people involved in politics for what they are, which is very small-minded, people to be pitied, but people who can cause trouble. And it's a horrible business. It really is a horrible business.
So, for instance, that again proves the point that you probably don't have to do it. You choose to do it because I'm putting words in your mouth, but you want to make a difference and you want to look after. Are they technically called constituents or residents?
I think probably residents is more appropriate, but I do hear constituents used a lot. Usually that's used in a constituency. Whether I have a constituency, I don't know. But MPs have got a constituency, haven't they? But residents certainly.
So the people that you look after, what are the main issues that kind of plague their lives at the moment?
The one I get most messages on, and I spent an hour this afternoon on with somebody, is potholes, road surfaces. That is like the biggest by a mile. It comes in and out of fashion, and this time of year it's always in fashion because the roads are always at their worst state this time of year. Just come out of winter, the roads have had a whole winter of rain and frost and ice to make the potholes worse, but you don't start repairing them till the spring proper. So, but potholes are a problem. They bother people. The biggest issue that affects mental health, affects our economy, affects jobs, and affects community cohesion is crime and fear of crime. And there's some of the things I see, some of the abuse I see, some of the horrific victimization that I see, and people scared to leave their homes is thoroughly depressing. And I am committed to do everything I can. It's often not easy. I don't control the police. I don't control their budget. I can't go to the government and ask for 50 million quid. Well, I can, but there's not much point. So I crime and fear of crime. People, antisocial behaviour is the phrase that's used. Antisocial behaviour is, I don't know, a kid knocking at your door and running off, or dog mess on the pavement. That's antisocial. The stuff that we tend to call antisocial behaviour is intimidating, it's terrifying, and it genuinely pushes people to the brink of suicide. It's a crime. And that's the biggest issue everywhere in the country. That's the biggest issue.
But the thing is, like, it would take, and this is someone that also worked for 3.5 years in local authority, government type thing. It takes people that are entrepreneurial, are willing to take a risk and put their neck on the line and go over and above to tackle issues that are big issues like this. But then likewise, again, it's the ability that you can impact. How many residents do you have in Middlesbrough?
In our little council, very, very narrow boundaries, we have 141,000 people.
Wow. But that's 104,000 people that you can improve their lives, even if it is only potholes. I love it. I think it's brilliant. And likewise, part of the reason why I wanted to get you on the podcast is just that from what I'd seen and when I'd done my homework, you haven't had to do almost any of it, but you chose to because my perception was that you wanted to make an impact and you wanted to look out for the community. And likewise, often you can have a much bigger impact to 100,000 people that in many ways they can't always help themselves. And I think that's why it's kind of really cool. And I certainly applaud, as will many people, kind of what you've done and stuff.